Thank you for having us here today, Charles.
I'm so excited.
Really cool.
I've been watching you guys for a long time, actually.
Thanks. So you're a fan of the channel?
Oh, I'm a fan of the show.
I heard one day that the Tesla driving CEO of a sustainable food company was a fan, and I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's not just your focus on Tesla. Now you know is just a great show. Does my hair look good? I'm Charles Coristine. I'm the CEO and president of LesserEvil, and it's been 7 or 8 years. We now own our own manufacturing. We have our own warehouse, our own distribution, which is kind of cool. We're based in Danbury, Connecticut, which isn't very far from New York City. And we're really proud of our commitment to organic. We're one of the bigger organic snack food manufacturers in the country. And we're one that particularly focuses on sustainability. We think that adds value to the company and adds value to the employees. We're trying to be as progressive in all the ingredients we use, how we manufacture things, and the lasting effect we have on the environment.
So tell me, you drive a Model 3 right now, but you also have a new Model Y?
Yeah, I did. Nobody in the office knows that.
Well, they do now. So that's your wife's car?
That's my wife's car, yeah.
And does she let you drive it at all, or how is it?
I get to drive it on the long trips, but no, I don't get to drive it. And she likes it. She likes the whole SUV feel because we had a Santa Fe before, so she likes being above ground. She finds the 3 is a little too low for her, whereas me, I love being a little lower to the ground. But it's interesting to know. I'm kind of feeling the difference between rear-wheel drive and the all-wheel drive.
Oh, because your Model 3 is rear-wheel.
Rear-wheel drive, and it's definitely a little bit more nimble. The one thing I do like about the dual motor is the whining of the engine, because you don't hear that with the 3. With the Model Y, you step on it and you hear this like, and it's like
it's a cool sound.
It's a cool sound.
All right, so the company started in 2004, but then when you came along, it changed. I was noticing that there's when I was looking at the history of the company, it changes quite a bit, and it seems to be when you came on board.
Yeah, so it was before it was kind of a better for you snack food company. So being better for you than Lay's potato chips isn't really good for you. Mm-hmm. So when I came on board, I should take a step back. I was in finance, so
okay.
I was pretty stressed out. I was a bond trader in Wall Street. I was doing the commute from Westchester into New York City every day, and I was getting close to turning 40, and I was like, I got to do something different because I was kind of crawling out of my skin. And previous to that, I had gone vegetarian. I was flirting with veganism. I was really big into meditation, just anything to try to make myself feel better. Mm-hmm. And I was really getting into that lifestyle. So when a friend of a friend's father was selling LesserEvil, and it was like this or better for you snack food company, I was like, this could be really interesting to give this a shot. So I bought the company, but when I bought the company, I found out that it was a little more upside down than I thought. Oh. Like the profit margins were, weren't sustainable. Like we weren't gonna make money doing what we were doing. And the products themselves weren't great.
So I mean, you bought a company to kind of reduce your stress, and then
you dumped into a stressful
situation.
Yeah, it was too good to be true, and I found that out quickly. So one of the first things we did was, I think it was my ego got heavily involved because I had told everybody that I was leaving and that I was moving on to this new amazing thing, and it wasn't so amazing. And so I doubled down and said, okay, well, the only way we're going to make money is if we actually manufacture these products ourselves. Okay. And what happens with most food companies, which you don't realize, is someone has a great idea and they want to come up with a chip or a bar or something like that, and then they go to a co-packer and they say, hey, can you make this for us?
Oh, so wait, when you bought the company wasn't really making anything. It was subbing that out.
It was subbing that out. And 95% of food companies sub that stuff out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you have these massive factories in different parts of the country. Most of them are in kind of the Midwest, and they make a lot of the brands that you know.
Okay, so slow down for a second. Yeah. You buy a company, you're in a different field.
I'm in a different field completely.
Right. You come buy this company, and then you also have to decide to manufacture a product that before wasn't even.
Well, if I didn't manufacture the products, I just didn't think we were going to be around for very long.
Wow. So what was one of your first products?
The first product we made was one that we co-packed. It was me knocking off a pretty successful company, Pop Chips, and we basically made a black bean pop chip made with milled chia seed. Okay. So it was a pop chip that had fiber, protein, some antioxidants or whatever, but it wasn't really original product. That was good because it kind of stabilized things a little bit. The one thing that they had done really well is, there's this very complex distribution system in food. And there's distributors all over the country that distribute to grocery stores and Whole Foods and other natural stores. And you have to get into that distribution network even to get your products to those things. So one thing that LesserEvil had was it did pay a lot of money to set up this distribution network. Okay. So I needed to figure out what to put in that network that was different than what the company was currently doing. So that satiated the desire that kind of kept LesserEvil alive, but what really turned the needle was what we did quickly after that. We opened up a manufacturing center here in Danbury where we bought a puffer that could make popcorn and could make other snacks. So you could either puff pellets or puff popcorn kernels. And we basically, what that allowed us to do was to start using different ingredients and doing things a little bit differently. Because what happens is co-packers have a very set, specific way of doing things, and they care really about line utilization. So they want to run for as long as possible, and they want to use a subset of ingredients that aren't allergens, that are easy to clean down, so they can go from one product to the next product to the next product. What ends up happening is you get a lot of snacks that are really, really similar.
I was wondering about that. So if you come to them with an idea, they kind of have to massage it to fit
what they're doing.
I see. Whereas when you now control it, you have much more control over
exactly.
Okay.
So the first thing we did was we started messing around with different ingredients, and we got really lucky. What the chia pop chip did that we weren't making was realize that chia was interesting, so we got into this line of chia popcorn. It was our first foray into organic. That led us to other things, and what it led us to is working with other ingredients like coconut oil. Probably our big first home run was we did an air popcorn, and we coated it with raw extra virgin coconut oil, which was something that no other popcorn was doing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you're getting good fats that were unprocessed, so it wasn't fried in vegetable oil. So you're getting raw popcorn kernels popped in air with raw coconut, and then we dusted with Himalayan salt, which Himalayan salt wasn't really being used back then.
Right. I mean, one of our favorites actually is the Himalayan sweetness popcorn.
Yeah.
We can't seem to stop eating it. So what year is this that you took over and started your first product?
So I bought the company in 2011. I want to say we started manufacturing products in 2012, and then when we really started using upper level ingredients was like 2013, 2014.
Okay, and so when you started doing this, talk about organic for a second here, because was the company organic before then?
No.
And so isn't that, a big leap to go to organic? Because it seems to me that as soon as you go to organic, and I'm a huge fan of that, you're increasing costs, I'm assuming.
Really good question. And I'll tell you the reason why most people don't do organic is because consumers unfortunately won't pay the premium that organic costs in the market. So let's say, for instance, an organic popcorn, conventional popcorn costs 20, 25 cents a pound. Organic popcorn is closer to 60 cents a pound. So you're looking at 2 to 3 times the price. And when you go to let's say Whole Foods or Costco or whatever, most consumers are only willing to pay about 20% more for organic. So most of the time, economically, it doesn't make sense to use organic until the consumer actually is willing to pay what it costs to produce organic.
Did you feel at that time, say in 2013-ish, that the consumer was ready for that? Or how did you decide to jump on board with that?
We saw it as white space. I wasn't as margin focused. I was really just looking for my little niche spot. So at that time, I wasn't so interested in competing with everybody else. I was just wanted to find a product that sold.
Did it work?
It did work. And what the great equalizer was we could make organic work because we manufactured our own products. So we took out, so let's say you pay a co-packer 25% to make your goods. If you can invest that 25% that you would get someone else to make your own products and make it yourself, you can essentially make up the difference between that missing margin. So you can sell organic for almost the same price as you can sell conventional.
So it almost sounds like your background in finance allowed you to see things a little bit differently than maybe the existing companies were seeing things.
Yeah, I think my background in finance was really good because I was used to making a lot of mistakes. And when I was in finance, I traded bonds for a living, and I was wrong more than I was right. And what makes a good trader is someone, you keep pivoting until you find the right trade or, the right direction the market's going. And So when I started LesserEvil, we launched a lot of different things, and we kept iterating, and finally we found something that resonated with consumers, and that was selling organic at a price that was very comparable to conventional with these higher level ingredients.
So you started with popcorn, the organic popcorn, and then you started experimenting with flavors of the organic popcorn?
Yeah, so once we realized that the coconut oil was the rage, then we got into avocado oil, we got into grass-fed organic ghee, then we got into all these different flavors and stuff. We've really found a niche going plant-based, so this popcorn in particular is a great example. It's made with botanical extracts, and so we've managed to do a butter popcorn that tastes as good as butter, but actually uses plant-based ingredients.
Oh, that's huge.
And then we've just launched a line of popcorn that's called No Cheese Cheesiness, which is an organic nutritional yeast popcorn, which tastes almost like cheese, but there's no cheese, and it makes you feel a lot lighter.
Which is huge because so many people are lactose intolerant.
Yep.
I mean, I have a daughter who's lactose intolerant, and it means that anytime we do anything, we have to either bring the lactate pills or we have to switch up. So
Did you know that almost everyone is lactose intolerant?
I believe it now because when I have too much milk products, I don't feel great.
Yeah,
and so,
if you eat ice cream, most people say the trade-off's worth it, right? Because it tastes really good. You're willing to feel a little bit bloated afterwards. But
let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
Now there's so many new ingredients that mimic or do better than milk. So like if we're talking ice cream, there's almond-based milk ice creams and so forth that have taken off.
Oat-based milk,
right.
and
Now I can't.
Banana milk.
I like blind taste test myself sometimes, and I can't tell. And this is happening fast.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a lot of people who aren't in this space, so like I went primarily plant-based about 8 years ago, and before that though, it was like a different language. Like I didn't understand it at all. And so I can imagine a lot of people today might pick up a product and just be like, I don't know, what's the difference here? I feel like a lot of people just need to try it to see that, like, first of all, it's delicious, it's got to meet that test. But then, it's good for you.
When you talk about veganism, people get scared, and we've found that if you put vegan on the bag, sometimes that is,
it's like a trigger word sometimes.
It's like a trigger word, and people think, well, maybe it's not going to taste all that good because they've done something. Maybe they've used soy or some sort. But if it says plant, plant forward or plant based or something, like, most people are willing to try it, and if it tastes better than or as good as something as the real thing, people will eat it. And it's pretty cool. I think people are getting more and more plant forward.
Let's talk about the name of the company, because LesserEvil, it has the word evil in it, and I feel like right off the bat, like if you're taking like a marketing 101 course, like that would probably be like a no-go.
Yeah.
But we're talking snack foods, and I mean, for the most part, these are things that we all kind of know are not the primary diet.
But you just nailed it, because when the brand first came out, that's what they were thinking. Well, snack foods are evil. We're going to make something that's less evil. So LesserEvil made sense. I think the brand has kind of taken on a life of its own. I think that it's just about doing the best you can. The journey is kind of inward and kind of overcoming, all your turmoil and all the different obstacles that you've been given as a person. And that's what is pretty special about the name to me.
When a parent is, putting a bag of chips or something in their kids', lunch for school, they have plenty of choices.
Sure.
And I feel like this is actually a way better choice, because if you look at the ingredients on the back, there's none of those things you can't pronounce.
No, and that we want to be the trusted brand that people that this brand resonates with know that they, without even turning the bag over, that we're going to use ingredients that we would feed our family. I mean, it's our mantra.
What is the biggest challenge to get consumers to try a new product like this? Because it's not only new in terms of a flavor, it's also new in terms of it's organic. It's probably a little more expensive than cheaper things they were used to.
Yeah, I think it's snack food has become somewhat commoditized. So getting people to try stuff that's a little bit more expensive is a tough thing to do.
But is it like word of mouth? Is it that Johnny had it in his lunch, and Sally tried it, and that kind of thing?
What we found is like coming up with a really hot price point and getting people to try it.
Okay.
Yeah, sampling is everything, because if we can get people to try the product, typically they'll buy it.
Right.
But getting people to try it is tough, because there's literally thousands of brands, and you walk on the snack aisle and it's like, what do I try? I mean, a paleo puff. What is a paleo puff?
So let's just talk about ingredients for a second, because what I'm really impresses me, and the reason we want to partner with you guys, is that I really am into organic and good for you ingredients. And on the back of pretty much every product is good for you ingredients. How do you source these ingredients? They're not like you were saying. Most of the big companies get corn delivered by the ton or whatever.
Yep.
How do you go about finding ingredients?
You got to go out and find the ingredients. It literally is. Sometimes it's me surfing the internet and seeing where So, organic cassava flour. That's not something that you find here in the United States. We found it in Brazil. Organic popcorn is pretty readable here in the United States. It's in Nebraska, Indiana, whatever. The coconut oil all comes from the Philippines. So we got to we basically use brokers, but we were starting to buy direct from the Philippines. Himalayan salt that comes from Pakistan, Nepal, India. So they're all from different places.
So that's a whole lot tougher.
Yeah. Supply chain is interesting. Some of the supply chains on these are very immature, and what ends up happening is if it takes off and the supply chain isn't ready for it, you typically disappoint your retailers.
Oh, right, because if you can't get enough, say, Himalayan salt, then you've got to stop producing for a while.
Exactly.
Are there any ingredients that are getting more and more common? So like organic popcorn, is that something that you see is growing?
I would say the organic popcorn, it's probably growing 5 to 10% a year, the yield. I would say cassava, you're seeing, the big trend now is, I don't know if you know about grain-free, but grain-free is part of a lot of the different diets, whether it's paleo, autoimmune protocol, Whole30, all that stuff is, because grain, much like we were talking about dairy before, is really hard for your body to digest. So we talk about, is everybody gluten-free? Does everyone have problems with grains? Some people have much worse problems, but everybody doesn't digest necessarily. I'm not a scientist, but there's I don't know whether it's a molecule or cell, but it's called ghalatin, and it's just undigestible by the body, and it actually causes leaky gut syndrome because it gets. But nobody can digest it.
Now let's go to packaging for a second, because I know that you guys put a lot of effort into that. It must be hard as a snack food company to come up with a bag or whatever that meets all the requirements. But tell me about your packaging.
So the packaging is pretty cool. It's a Canadian company. It's actually they had a thing on 60 Minutes. It's a packaging technology called Neo, and they put an enzyme in the packaging that actually helps break down the package when it's put in landfill. I think there needs to be 3 conditions that are present. I think it needs a moisture. It needs a temperature, and I think it needs a food source. The premise of this being is that when all 3 of those things are prevalent, which are prevalent in a landfill, the package starts to biodegrade by itself.
Oh, interesting. So unlike a regular package, which could be there 1,000 years from now, whatever, this should slowly disappear.
Exactly. From what they've told us, typical packaging takes 200 to 300 years for it. Some may take as many as 1,000 years. But this starts to biodegrade in 2 to 3 years, so it's a big difference. So,
and I'm assuming again that's more expensive for you to choose that option.
Yes, it's probably 10 to 15% more expensive than our conventional packaging.
So why are you choosing to do all these nice things? Why don't you just assume that we're all dumb consumers and that we don't care about the packaging and save some money?
The honest answer there is I think that if we're out in front of it, I think that the pricing will come back into if we're a first adopter of this, that we will add to our consumer base because people will recognize that we're trying to do the right thing, and we'll gain some loyal consumers. But typically we've found that as we develop these supply chains, that costing typically comes into line over time, that we can make it work in our, so we'll take a hit up front, and then hopefully we'll make it back and increase volume and more customers.
Now, I heard that in your factory you're also composting. Can
Yes.
you tell me a bit about that?
So we didn't know this when we first started. We just started composting, I want to say about 3 years ago, but someone set up a composting site here in Danbury of all places, and they came by our factory and said, hey, I'm composting, would you be interested in partnering with us? And we were like, absolutely. So now we've composted this great site, and I mean, I can get you some information on them, but I think it's been a really big success, and there's been other manufacturers here in Danbury that are jumping on board with that.
So what are you composting?
We compost popcorn, basically any kind of food waste that we have. So whether it's salt, oil, cassava, popcorn, you name it. So veggie sticks. We actually, before we composted, we used to give it to farmers that would feed their pigs and cattle and stuff like that.
So you guys are, I've seen you in Whole Foods. So if our viewers who are watching want to find your products, what's the best way they can find you?
We're in a lot of brick and mortar. It really differs from region to region. Like here in the Northeast, you're going to find us at Wegmans and ShopRite and Stop and Shop and Whole Foods and Big Y and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Can they go like on your website to find out where to find you, or are they just going to pretty much find you in their local?
No, you can buy all our stuff on our website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if they can't find you, where they're shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's LesserEvil.com?
LesserEvil.com.
Interesting. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So down the road, do you see yourself expanding to different locations, or you pretty?
Yeah. So what we're working on now is shipping truckloads of product to different warehouses in different parts of the country.
To lower that shipping.
To lower that shipping. I see a world. It's really interesting. If you want to talk about something I think is pretty cool, is that I see a world where Amazon disappears in 10 years from now, where you're going to see all these, as brick and mortar, which we're starting to see starts to disappear. You're going to see these micro warehouses set up all throughout the United States. So you're like, the banks that were there that you don't necessarily go into as much, or that there's this thousands of drugstores and all these different. Those will become little distribution centers, and basically what will happen is the Grubhub drivers and the Uber and the Lyft drivers won't just drive people anymore, they're going to drive packages. And so it'll be spoked out into major warehouses and then spoked out into smaller warehouses, and there'll just be this this web that crosses the United States.
Oh, that's
and you'll be able to get stuff within 2 to 3 days directly from the manufacturer at lower prices.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So everything will get trucked or shipped somehow to these bigger.
And I think Tesla, we bring it, when you see these autonomous trucks come in, and you see them set up lines throughout so you're going to have intermodal, you're going to have rail that's going to play a bigger play, and you're going to have a lot of this autonomous trucking. And it's going to take it to these spoking, which is then going to be spoked from those places.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it'll be cool. So all those costs are going to go way down. And I think we're right on the verge of seeing all that happen.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, with, say, Tesla semi-truck, if they can start doing, say, convoys where you've got two, unmanned trucks behind a manned truck, then, the cost.
I think that'll be the start, right? Yeah. There'll be a manned truck, and then there may be 5 unmanned trucks following that truck.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen faster than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really
I'm really excited about that.
That is, that's what Elon talks about all the time, right? Is being excited about the future as opposed to just being bummed about the future.
And then, so the little guy can come up with this great idea, and he can get it to market really quickly, and he doesn't have to succumb to all these behemoths which charge you slotting and all these different things. Like if you want to become the next snack food manufacturer, I mean, there's a lot of hurdles to climb in terms of getting distribution and getting stores, and there's a lot of money. But if you can go direct to the consumer with a great product, I mean, there's just so many things that can happen. It's just it'll make things a lot more even than just the big guys getting bigger.
Speaking of ideas, how do you come up with new ideas for flavors and snack foods?
It's living the lifestyle. I love trying new things, and when I think that something is legit, I want to play with it. I'm really excited. So, this is a really cool product, these Veggie Sticks. It's a brand new format for us, but we decided, for instance, we wanted to make a Veggie Stick, and all Veggie Sticks on the market are made basically with potato and food coloring, and when you go get a bag of Veggie Sticks, you're not really getting any veggies. So we took all these organic vegetables and we stuck them into one of these twin screw extruders and mixed them all up, and saw if we could make a snack, and I'll show you that. It's pretty cool. Now this doesn't look like a regular veggie stick, because it's not as pretty, but that's like a bunch of veggies mixed up into like one big block.
Oh, so I'm not just eating corn or potato.
No corn or potato in it, or rice.
That's delicious.
Yeah.
When you're having to find suppliers of organic vegetables, talk to me again about that. Is that difficult?
Yeah, so there were certain organic vegetables we just couldn't get in the size that we wanted. You just couldn't find the powder in the quantity that we wanted. So there was definitely a set playbook. Some of the green veggies in particular were too strong tasting. You couldn't use, but we were pretty happy. I think we ended up using, in the green blend, which was the toughest one to use, was organic spinach, organic broccoli. Those were the two ones that were the most prevalent that we could get in that kind of size.
That's interesting. So, I mean, a parent who wants their kids to eat more veggies can actually get them some LesserEvil, Veggie Sticks, and they're doing it.
Yeah, I'm not making any promises these are going to taste quite like a veggie stick, but it's definitely worth a try. And we've been giving it to a lot of kids, and so far so good. I mean, there's some kids that throw away the green ones and will eat the red ones.
So do you see that you're creating an actual chain, a supply chain, in where it may not have existed before?
Yeah, let me tell you a cool story. We've got these egg white curls that are over there. Mm-hmm. So when we went and started making this product, this is a pretty cool story, was we wanted to make it with certified humane egg whites, which was a pretty immature market. You'd think, people love, this is what shows that Americans want to do better. If you look at, you go to Trader Joe's or Costco or whatever, two of the bigger retailers in the country, their best-selling eggs that they have are free range, cage-free certainly, but free range, and they look for that certified humane stuff. Anyways, they didn't have any of this egg white powder around. So we entered into an agreement with a big retailer to produce these. Anyways, we had to go to an egg supplier, and they had to go and basically grow the chickens for us in a specific manner because they didn't have, the egg white powder just didn't exist.
So, that's super important because I want to talk about this for a second. You're changing how the food producers are making food because you're demanding it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I know. And then, when we started looking at these egg whites, they were $20 a pound, and now I think we pay $10.70 a pound.
Wow.
And we're actually able to find in Europe that they take it even a step further than, cage-free. They have these barn eggs, which are I think they even have more space, and the chickens are even treated better than over there. And I think they're look at $6 or $7 a pound for this stuff. So it's coming our way.
Where do you think consumers are with the education about the fact that what you put in your body is important? Like, for the longest time, I think it was price. It was like, oh, that's cheaper, I'm buying that.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're at now with consumers?
If you have something wrong with your body and you've been struggling with something, those are the consumers that typically look for a lot of these things. When you're perfectly healthy, people take their health for granted. Yeah. And it's still not mainstream yet. I think when you have stuff like COVID, I think that's a real wake-up call for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are starting to take their health a little more seriously, from what I can tell. But it's still not as rampant as you would want in the United States. I think there's still a whole subset and it's probably 60 or 70% of the people that are still worried about price.
Yeah, the pandemic has made us focus on ourselves in a way that we haven't before. I see so many more people going for family walks and for bike rides and stuff, and I think maybe we're slowly waking up to the fact that has a value along with the food we put in our bodies. But again, I don't hear that talked about enough, which is we're stressed, or we have anxiety, or we're not getting enough sleep, but we don't think of the basics, which is, what are you eating?
Yeah, I don't think we talk enough about like, what does exercise and what is clean eating and what is getting enough. The sleep conversation is the single most determinant, even more so than food, of good health. And I think Americans don't even talk about that. And it's been amazing what COVID has meant for me. Like, we've used it as a family as an opportunity to really needle down on health. We take a lot of vitamins now that we never used to take. I've never felt so good in my entire life. I'm going to bed every night at 9:30. I'm getting up at 5. These are things that never existed before COVID. Wow. And now it's like it's been a real wake-up check, and I think there's probably a big percentage of people who are like me that are worried about, about their health, over the coming months.
Yeah, so I want to go back to your point about how you started using cage-free eggs in your product, and how me as a consumer, I can't really go into a store and demand anything as one person.
Sure.
Maybe as a movement starts to happen, but talk to me about how it feels that you actually are able to do that, because your company's big enough. I mean, I know you keep saying we're not a big company, but you're big enough, you're in so many stores, that if you put out a new product, you create a demand for that product.
So I wish I could take all the credit for this, but I obviously am beholden to my retailers, right? So the subset of retailers that I deal with, I know will give me more love. So I do listen to their demands and what they know. So the consumer does really vote. So if you vote and you're going to Jimbo's Naturally or Mom's Organic Market or Mother's or whatever, and you are buying a lot of these products and they know that there is a huge market for certified humane, and I come to them and say, I have a meeting with Whole Foods and I say, listen, I'm thinking about doing these puffs and I'm thinking about using a better for you egg white, something that's, environmentally sustainable, or that's something that appeals. They'll say to me like, Charles, we want you to use these certified humane because our consumers want this. And I say, oh, really? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll say, okay, well, what do you think I can charge for that? Is it economically feasible for me to do that? And they'll say, okay, well, we think you could probably sell that snack for $4.99. And this is, if you want to get into the real semantics. So then I go back and I say, okay, well, I went and looked and I could only find the certified humane subset in the organic world. And they're going to charge me $20 a pound for these eggs. So then that retailer will sell, and I can't do it for $4.99 because there's no way we're going to, we can't even break even on this.
Right.
So then there are great retailers out there that say, well, we've got a supply chain in egg whites. And we use a lot of egg whites. We want you to talk to these 3 suppliers. And you go, well, really? And tell them that we sent you, and that if they don't listen to your demands, that we may not buy as many egg whites from them as a chain. So there was,
Okay, so I do have some power as a consumer.
You do have a lot more power as a consumer. And when I went, that retailer that helped me make these egg whites basically got that trade done, because they were the egg white supplier then said, okay, we'll produce this for $10 a pound. Right. We may not make money on this, but we care about all our other business. So we want to, egg whites, it's a good source of protein, but it's animal based. So what is a great vegetable source of protein that we could add? So we looked at sustainable watermelon seed protein.
It's watermelon seed?
Watermelon seed protein.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's completely sustainable and it's upcycled. So all this watermelon juice that is made, that you've probably drank,
right.
They basically throw away all their seeds, and those seeds can be chopped up and milled, and it's 65% protein.
Oh, that's so cool. I never even considered that. So the watermelon seeds are just waste when you're making watermelon juice or water.
Or whatever you're making with the watermelon.
And then you're able to use that?
Yeah, so you get some supplier or will basically pay, I don't know what they end up paying for those seeds, but the seeds are probably going to be disposed. They probably won't even make it into a compost. And then they dry them, and then they basically mill them into a fine powder, and that powder is perfectly digestible, but it's 65% protein, and it actually tastes really good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we probably have some in the office that you guys could try.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a chance to go check out your facility soon where you make some of these products. I'm really excited about that. Before we do, though, there's a lot of parents that put a bag of whatever snack food in their kids' lunch, and that almost becomes lunch for a lot of kids. I've seen it working in the schools where they don't like what's the lunch for that day, let's say, or they trade with a friend, and they're just eating that snack food. How do you feel that you're in a market where actually this is kind of lunch for a lot of people?
It's sad, and there's a lot of lunch programs that, especially with COVID, where these kids that used to get lunches are not getting these lunches. But, snacks have become, and it's in a lot of school districts, it's Lay's potato chips, and whatever the school, and we've actually been trying to get into this market. The budgets that these schools will allow are like 20 to 25 cents a unit, and for that amount of money, you're not really getting something that's good for you.
It's so infuriating,
Yeah.
isn't it? That basically we know that kids who eat well and sleep well are going to have a better day at school.
Oh, absolutely, and they're
then
going
we
to
give
learn
them-
more.
and then we give them junk,
And then
too.
we give them junk
And-
because we can't afford to. We need to spend more money on children's.
Well, then let's talk about that for a
nutrition.
second. So, I mean, just like you were telling me that a consumer has a lot of power in terms of ingredients, we as the education consumers have a lot more power than we think we have in terms of getting what we want in our schools. It's just that most of us don't know that we have that power. But most of our towns have school committees, and most of those people are approachable.
But unfortunately, everybody was trying to cut money from the schools and not add money to their budgets.
How do we get that conversation going that yes, it's a penny wise, pound foolish proposition that to make a cheaper lunch is actually not helping you?
Not helpful, and it creates way more problems. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Because even if we did something as simple as instead of the Lay's potato chips, we put something more healthy for you in there. Yes, it would probably cost more because yes, you have to buy better ingredients.
Yeah.
But we must be able to start getting that conversation.
Well, it's
started.
happening. There's school districts in California that only serve organic. It's just how loud are you willing to cry?
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to cry loud enough, they'll do it. You just need a large enough subset of constituents,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, not, as I said. How many people really care about healthy food? It's not quite at that threshold yet, unfortunately.
Where's the tipping point? Where do you think we will get to a point where we? 'Cause I go to Norway when it comes to electric cars, right?
Yeah.
To me, they've reached a tipping point where electric cars, everyone's bought in.
Yeah, no, I know, and it's happening. It's happening all over Europe.
Are we going to get there with the consumers of food in terms of healthy food?
I think we're getting there. When I talk about, without naming names, but I'm going to name names. When I think about the Walmarts of the world, I think they're getting into natural and organic. We're starting to sell to Walmart, and I think that's probably a very positive sign, if there's any sign whatsoever.
Where do you think you guys are going to be going in the future with your products? Are you on a really positive slope now where you kind of see the future, or are you still just kind of feeling it out and finding new? Because there's a lot of new products. Like cookies are new for you guys.
The nice thing about LesserEvil is where there are potentially evil foods, we can exist. So we're going to try to make other subsets of the portable food world more ingredient focused. So we've been looking at candy.
How does the meeting go? Do you guys come up with some of the other products out there, and you're like, okay, what can we get into? What can we do better?
Yeah, we want to make stuff that tastes really good.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some things that we just can't get into. This is a perfect case study. So can a cookie go mainstream that only has 2 grams of added sugar and no sugar alcohols? So keto's the new hot thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so keto, you basically there's a lot of different sugar alcohols out there. You could put stevia in there, you could put erythritol, you could put monk fruit extract, a lot of different things that sweeten it up. But there are a lot of consumers who don't necessarily want their kids eating sugar alcohols because there's not a lot of scientific proof on whether it's good for you or whether it's not good for you. So we try to do something that uses coconut sugar and only a very little bit of coconut sugar. We just launched this product, so it's going to be really interesting to see. But this product it is a real cookie that only has a couple grams of added sugar. I think it has 5 grams of sugar. I think the other one has 3. But it's pretty amazing. So when we looked at this, and then we look at gummies, for instance, we were like, okay, most gummies are between 14 and 26 grams of sugar. Can we come up with a gummy that only has 6 or 7 grams of sugar? We're not perfect. None of this is not like eating spinach. It's not like eating kale. It's not like having celery. It's a snack food. There is an element of evil to these things, and people like indulging, and that's why we're here. So our premise is, if this works, maybe a 6 gram of sugar gummy is going to work. They taste like real fruit. We want to trick kids into getting back to wow, this tastes.
Let's talk about sugar for a second.
Yeah.
Because when I did change my diet, one of the things I switched was I went to drinking pretty much just water all day instead of sweetened water.
Yeah.
And as soon as my body got used to that, things tasted completely different. It only took me like 2
Now
weeks.
it doesn't. I know. Now
So if I eat an Oreo cookie now, I don't want to eat it. Like
Yeah.
it's just too
sweet. Yeah.
So when I eat something that's moderately sweet, my taste buds are great with that.
Yeah.
So again, that goes back to the education though, because like if you're just comparing sugar, and you're addicted to it, which it's addictive.
Yep.
Then yeah, you can't compete if you go right from that to something less sugary. It doesn't taste as
Doesn't taste as good.
But once you've
Remove sugar.
Yeah,
from
so
it.
once you've kind of come down from sugar, then you don't really want to go back to full sugar.
Yeah. No, and it tastes plenty sweet enough. You're totally right. So how do we get people to eat a lot less sugar?
Yeah. But I mean, the great thing is it doesn't take long to do. Like it doesn't take a year or something. It just takes a couple weeks to get your body off it. But yeah, how do we do that? I mean, any thoughts on that, or is it just education? Is it just because the thing is, it's more addictive than cocaine. I mean, sugar. And I feel like we need to tell people that, because once I heard that, I got mad. I was like, wait, you never told me this, that it's so addictive and that it's going to be hard to come off of.
Yeah. No, it's like smoking cigarettes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it happened fast. If we go to cigarette example, I never thought in my lifetime I would see that disappear like it has. I mean,
know.
It's practically disappeared.
It's practically disappeared. I haven't seen anyone smoking on the street forever.
Whereas, I mean, right now in an office, normally everyone would be smoking.
Yeah. 30 years ago.
But I think it was education.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as soon as we put those warning labels, that triggered things, and people started to go, but this isn't good for us.
Yeah. And maybe you make them more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody loves taxes, but sometimes taxes are the great equalizer, you
Right.
know? And you tax those, and maybe you take those taxes on sugar, and you provide, low-income school districts with better food. You know, so that you can distribute things in an interesting way if you're willing to look at outside the box solutions.
All right, so right now we're looking at avocado oil going on popcorn. Tell me about this. How did you come up with that idea? This is really cool. Like, where do you get the avocado oil?
We get it from Mexico. So when we thought of the next transition from coconut oil, avocado, like everybody loves avocados.
Here we're looking at Himalayan salt. You're getting bags of Himalayan salt, kind of raw, and then you guys have to process it?
They come as salt, but I don't know whether in the travel, whatever, there's some moisture that gets in, so they come, sometimes we'll get like big blocks or whatever, and we have to put them through a sifter and
Oh, so that it coats properly.
well, yeah, exactly, so it coats, so it becomes fine, so we can use it as a, as a topping.
And you process your own ghee or make your own ghee?
We make our own ghee, so we used to buy organic ghee off of someone that made ghee and wanted to, so we had their logo on the back, made with so-and-so's ghee, but it turned out that we couldn't get enough ghee from them, so we ended up doing it all on our own. So we now buy organic butter, which is, there's a lot more organic butter than there is ghee, and then it's not that complicated. We have to boil it for a few hours and then sift it or whatever, but it's pretty cool.
Now we're looking at your paleo puffs, and you were telling me that it's not so easy to make yours. Why is that again?
Just because a puff needs to expand to a certain size, or our puffs are about this big, and as I was saying, that we don't use potato, rice, or corn, and when you don't use one of those ingredients, it's hard to get it to puff like that. So you need to use a lot of force.
Oh, so you're using a more powerful expeller here.
That's why we use the more powerful extruder. We could use a much smaller, less powerful extruder if we were using something that expanded a lot easier.
You almost had to come up with your own machinery to make your products. They're
Exactly.
not like off the shelf.
They're not off the shelf. So when we wanted to make this product, when we presented it, we knew what we wanted to make. We were like, oh, that's going to be really expensive if we want to make this product ourselves. So we went out into the market. One thing we've been really good at is being really nimble and resourceful. So we go out and typically buy used machinery and refurnish it ourselves. We've got a good technical crew that can help us refurbish stuff. So that way we can afford stuff like that. But typically we wouldn't be able to afford something like that, especially as, given our size.
And what we're seeing here is a machine that is wrapping your crates.
Yep.
And this is more efficient than humans doing it?
Oh, much more efficient.
So you use less plastic?
A lot less plastic. We probably used, I think, 60 to 70% less plastic, just because it when it wraps it so much tighter and keeps the boxes in place, and you need a lot less layers to wrap it.
That's
and
really
it's also
cool.
much more efficient in where it wraps it in terms of the surface area.
And you free up an employee who can be doing something else during that time.
Exactly.
That's really cool. Your packaging, so these big rolls we're seeing here, these shiny rolls, these are that neo material you were telling me about. And where does this come from?
The enzyme that goes in the film comes from Canada, or the technology comes from Canada, but we actually get the film made in Turkey.
So I mean, you go through all these extra steps because it's better, it's more sustainable.
Yeah.
And you're willing to do that.
Yeah, we just have to plan better,
And then lastly, we're seeing this machine here, which is bagging the popcorn, and it's really cool. You were telling me that there's all these hoppers, and that we're looking at here, and they're weighing their individual, what they're holding.
Yeah, so there's 14 heads on each one of these scales, and we know that the bag needs to be 5 ounces. So it goes through all these different permutations every time it wants to drop, and it uses some combination of 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 of these scales to release exactly 5 ounces. And the really good scales sometimes can drop 200 times a minute. So they're making these finite measurements like really quickly. The cheaper stuff that we've seen, I showed you a really good scale and a really bad scale. Some of them only can do 25 a minute. Some can do a lot more than that. It really depends on the quality of the scale.
All right, so I'm really fascinated with the fact that you are running a sustainable company, but you're also a big Tesla fan.
Yeah.
How did you get your Tesla? Like, what made you make that switch? Because that's a switch, right? We've just been talking about switching from sugar to less sugar and so forth. You switched your diet, but you also switched your car. How'd you do that?
I think it probably started 2 years ago. My son is 14. I want to say he became a Tesla fanatic when he was probably 12.
And how did he do that? I mean, he can't drive.
He can't drive, but he's, like that. This thing is electric, and this thing goes super fast, and it's great for the environment. I mean, kids these days are so smart. I mean, I don't know whether they're learning this stuff in school, maybe it's social media or whatever, but I think the good side of all of this stuff that we're talking about, I think the world is in good hands, because a lot of these kids, as they, go through college and stuff, and they're making, you want to, I'm going to get into Tesla one, but a lot of the people that buy these snacks are the kids telling their parents that they got to buy these snacks, because 13-year-olds saying, you got to buy this stuff. So going back to Tesla, I mean, we're talking about footprint, right? And whether it's footprint, whether it's biodegradable packaging, or you're driving an electric car, it's all one and the same thing. And he's been needling me for 2 years, and I want to say I'd had enough. We were at the Westchester Mall. I remember this it was not this past spring, but the spring before, and he's like, "Dad, you're taking me for a test drive in this car," and it was between the S and the 3. And one car was $20,000 more than the other car, and I kind of liked the 3. It was like it just felt simpler. So we took it for a test drive. Of course, I ended up buying it that day, because all the pressure that had come to bear had finally broke my back. My favorite thing that I've ever bought. I mean, I absolutely love that thing. I have an hour drive to and from work every day, so I spend probably between 2 and 2.5 hours in my car every day. So I listen to podcasts, I put it on autopilot. It makes my day super enjoyable. I talk to my mom in the morning. It's just a beautiful thing to have in it, and I love plugging it in every night, and I love unplugging it and getting it in the morning. It's just an amazing thing.
So you bought it that day?
I bought it that day.
So I mean, it really is butts and seats. Like once you felt it.
Once you felt it, and then once you have it, the other car had to go. So when, my wife took a little more convincing, she's like, well, we got one,
you don't want to go completely electric, right? Yeah.
So we signed up for the Y, I want to say last October, and it was going to be delivered end of January, beginning of February, and then COVID hit. We tried to delay it, but then I want to say it was end of March, beginning of April, we got notice that it was being delivered, even though we tried to delay it.
All right, so let me ask you about that. You're a 2 EV family, you're a 2 Tesla family. What's it like to cut the cord? I mean,
Oh, it's been easy. And now we drive in tandem. We stop at the same stop. It's road trips, and driving has become so much more fun on trips, because you plan out where you want to stop. Like where are we going to stop? You know, like we want to go, what coffee place do we want to go? Where do we want to get lunch? It's like.
It's more social.
It's more social. And you see people there and everyone waves and stuff. And you go in and you see the guy that you were there and like you talk, 15-minute nice little break. We're back in the car. It's, it's been amazing.
And so your son kind of broke the ice, like had all the answers. Like I'm sure you probably had some questions, right? When he was like, this is a great car, Dad. And you were probably like, yeah, well, where do you plug it in? Right?
Yeah.
And did he have the answers?
He took care of everything. Yeah, from getting the charging station, where it should go, the 220 volt, with your dad,
awesome.
It hooks up to the dryer, this is how it, he still does everything. Like now I get in my car and my seat settings aren't even the automatic one, it's his, because he's moving the cars up and down in the driveway, making sure each one's plugged in properly.
Now, when can he drive?
Not till he's 16.
So he's got a ways to go.
But that hasn't stopped him.
Yeah. That's so great. And that just shows you the importance of having that person who can, introduce you to some new idea.
Yeah. No. And I think we've saved a ton of money. I mean, I'm not one of these people that runs an Excel spreadsheet and looked at my gas dollars, but I obviously drive a ton. And, and it's not just driving back and forth to work. It's like I have to drive to all these retailers all over the Northeast. I would say I would say I've saved thousands of dollars on gas. That's awesome. So it's been pretty cool.
And it fits right in with the mantra of your company,
which
is to be more sustainable.
It's a good fit.
That's really awesome. Wow. Thank you so much for talking to me today. This has been really enlightening. I'm really excited about our partnership.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Disruptive Investing. Be sure to like the video and subscribe. Click the bell button to be notified when new videos come out.